Welcome back to the Pit Stop Ranch. This here is Big Blue, and I'm not too sure how much I've talked about Big Blue in the past. I don't think I've done a video on him yet. We actually purchased Big Blue a few years ago. 3, I believe, 2.5, with intended purposes of making Big Blue a car hauler, like a ramp truck. And basically got a really good deal on it. I was able to drive it home. Brakes have been redone. It looks pretty good. It's in pretty good shape. There's no rust on it. It was originally used to haul hay from Bakersfield's down here, and then gentleman we purchased it from had been using it as a car hauler to haul, because he owned a VW, air-cooled VW restoration company, and he used the Big Blue to move his cars around. He retired and and decided to move out of state and didn't want to take old Big Blue with him, so put it up for sale, and we bought it for a pretty fair price for a running, driving, medium duty truck. Now, if you don't know what it is, of course, Ford should give it away. It is 1966 Ford, obviously, N600. Now, this was a cab design that was kind of an intermediate between a regular COE, cab over engine design, and a your normal standard cab medium duty commercial truck like the F600. It has the same cab as a Ford pickup from the time, all the way through the whole F series, except they've mounted it up and forward a little bit, so to reduce the length of the nose. When these were getting built back in the 60s, when they came out, a lot of metropolitan areas limited the overall length of a truck to operate within it. So as a result, that's when the cab over engine COEs became popular, and this was an attempt to make like a COE, but a little bit cheaper, because it used so many of the commonality with the standard F series. All right, let's show you around this magnificent beast. Okay, here's the dusty, dirty cab interior. It is the Ford T98. Anyways, so it's the desirable Ford 4-speed manual transmission that a lot of guys want in their Jeeps. They also think put them in the pickup trucks. Has a granny first, 1, 2, 3, and then on top of which there is an Eaton 2-speed rear axle in the back. Unfortunately, the 2-speed, it doesn't shift. It's always the same. It's always the same. So I'm gonna have to figure out what I did with the key. But it's a very standard pickup truck. If you've seen the inside of a 60s F series pickup, it's the same as this. Nothing special about it. Don't worry, it does ride like a truck. Now we have the flatbed on here, and unfortunately it has become storage for mostly crap we pulled off the slow. And part of today's tasks is I want to remove all of this crap here. It's all piled up, and put it on this craptastic utility trailer. You know, just get the hell out of the way. So now, when we bought it, the seller was advertising he got some new wheels or new tires, and they're not in the front. That's not good. That one looks good, other than the fact there's no inner tube or way to inflate it. So that's just there. That's an emotional support wheel. The spare, which is right there, which is pretty much brand new, the wheel lugs holes are too big and don't fit the axle. That inner tire doesn't have any air in it at all either. So we got some old weather check tires that are actually doing all of the supporting of the vehicle, and because of that, I have not used this vehicle as it was intended, or as we intended. It's furthermore, because of the height of the bed, how high up the bed is, we got some long ramps for it. Anyways, the seller, it came with some long ramps to come off the back here, and it scares the hell out of me, the idea of trying to drive something up them. It scares me enough that I've even attempted it, because just driving stuff on and off our trailer is a thrilling feat, let alone getting it up here. So as a result, we haven't attempted that. The set of commercial truck tires like that are not cheap. However, they're not that expensive. We could afford them, and we even at one point made an effort to get some, but for some reason it didn't happen. Now, when we go to get them, what we'd like to do, if you notice, you can see there, 9-20. That is, that 9 is because the sidewall is 9 inches, 20 for the rim diameter. So what we'd like to get are some 720s. Now that'll affect overall top speed, because, you know, it's like losing an overdrive. However, what it will do is it will drop the diameter by 4 inches, drop the actual truck down by 2 inches. Okay, so this moves down 2 inches, and with that 2 inches gone, you see this 4x4 in between the frame and the bed. Now you need something between the bed and the frame, but we could pull that 4x4 out and replace it with a piece of 1/2 inch plywood, plastic, hardwood, something, and be able to drop the bed down at least 3.5 inches. And with it lowered 3.5 inches, we can then, with the smaller tires on it, we're basically drop the bed down 5 inches. So we'd be going, bed would be down here. The other thing then like to do is, starting somewhere in here, angle this back, drop it down again, put a set of ramps that in that area they'll flip down for the rest of the way, and then when they're flipped up, it'll continue the flatbed, so we can continue to use it as a flatbed when we want to, but then we can flop the ramps down and be able to drive vehicles on and off without any problem. Opening the hood. right, so what we have here is, like I said, the cab is up and forward, so it actually does cover half the engine block. It is over half of the engine. You know, the firewall kind of lines up with the center of the carburetor. Now, let's talk about this engine. It's kind of a unique and special thing. When this truck was new, running the VIN numbers, we found out that it came with a Ford FT 330 cubic inch V8. Now, if you're not familiar with the Ford FT, it's because you didn't muck around with these commercial medium duty trucks. The FT is a development or an evolution of the Ford FE motor. FE being famously the 360, 390, 427, 428 engines put in the cars and pickup trucks from the late 50s through the late 70s, actually, on the pickups, I believe. And so that's what the 330 FT is, what came in this truck. Now, the differences between an FE and FT are the distributor top mount, where it goes to into the intake manifold. The front timing chain cover, which on the FT is a cast iron unit with mounts for the motor mounts. So that's how it attaches to the frame of the truck. It isn't on the side, and that is so that you could do a major overhaul on the engine with it still in the truck and not have to take it out of the truck, which we'll get to in a little bit. The FT engines are also got a they got a steel crank in them, tougher, stronger crank. And overall, I'm trying to remember, anyways, I think they were all 4-bolt main, and they were built for just running forever. A low compression ratio, high torque, 2-barrel intake manifold, yada yada yada. Now, I don't know how well it shows up on here. That's not a 2-barrel intake. It's not a two-barrel carburetor. This is something a bit different. This is kind of an amalgamation of the FT and an FE. Well, let's start by saying the person we purchased it from was fairly certain this was a pickup truck 390 that someone had put in here. He recognized it as not the stock FT engine. We were looking at the side of it, and it didn't have any of the earmarks of being well, much of anything. We couldn't recognize. We knew it was an FE style engine, and it had the automotive 390 4-barrel intake on it, the cast iron one. But we're having a hard time figuring out exactly what this engine was. It had the FT front timing chain cover, the cast iron one, and it had an automotive style distributor. But other than that, we were kind of confused at what we were looking at. It started to smoke, and the smoking got worse and worse. So it did something. It ate a ring, it did something. I don't know what the hell's going on. So I decided to take advantage of the fact that you can service this engine on chassis, and I did a major overhaul. I pulled the engine completely down to the bare block. The only thing I didn't do was change the timing chain, which it needs, because I would have had to pull the front timing cover off, so I could use a new timing set. The other thing I did, so I pulled the engine apart, I honed the cylinders out, I measured the bore and stroke of the engine, I left the crank in, I didn't take the crank out, but I did take the rods and pistons and everything out. Measured the bearings and everything else, And then went ahead and bought new bearings, new rings, and put it all together. Now, based upon the unusual casting of the block mixed with what I measured the bore to be and ran the part number on the aftermarket pistons, it comes out this is one of those industrial 428 engine blocks, bored 60 over, with a FT 391 steel crank. Overall displacement coming out to like 413 cubic inches, with the 4-barrel 390 car sedan heads. And then I went ahead, after throwing my back out, pulling the cast iron intake manifold off, which was twice as heavy as the individual heads. I went ahead and picked up this aluminum Edelbrock Performer RPM for a low revving truck engine. You know, made sense. And then the carburetor that was on this was a 600 CFM, and for the engine displacement and everything, I felt it was a little on the small side. And it wasn't tuned right. It was exceptionally rich. It was incredibly rich. So I put this 800 CFM Edelbrock, basically new, on here, and that's what we've been running, and it runs pretty good. And a whole bunch of junk on it that I am going to now get off so that I can put different junk on Big Blue, because Big Blue is storage, at least for now. Okay, let's see if we can get Big Blue running, shall we? Now, the gas tank in this thing is rusty and full of crap, and it's also pretty full of very old gasoline. That's okay, because it's like 100 gallons. Well, maybe not 100 gallons, but a lot of gallons. So we have like 3 or 4 fuel filters in line on this thing. It's another reason why I don't relish the idea of driving it much. There. Slowly be a little bit of a fire hazard. I actually forget the last time this thing ran. And there you go. That's Big Blue. Our 1966 Ford N600 flatbed. I just took it for a spin around the block. I noticed while I was backing it down that things were sticking a little bit. Brakes work great. So I took it for a spin around the block just to loosen things up, make sure everything's good and lubed, and it runs and drives great still. I definitely still do not trust these tires to go freeway speeds carrying a load. They need to be replaced, and talking about getting going ahead and getting quotes for that. Don't know when that's going to actually happen, but who knows. And we'll have old Big Blue. Hopefully you'll see more of them in the future on the channel. At least more than just as a location to store a bunch of crap. So, like what we're doing here, you want to support us, please hit the like button. And if you would, and you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, have a blue-tastic day.